We're back with another familiar franchise.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Pitch This here on the MrEliMac YouTube channel. I am your host, MrEliMac, and today I'm back with an actual movie pitch. The fan casting series is over and I'm moving back over to doing actual pitches. I decided, when I decided to come back to doing movie pitches, I decided to come back to a franchise that started the Pitch This series, a franchise that is very near and dear to me, and that is the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. And ever since I released my last FNAF pitch video, 2 games and a movie have come out, and I really did enjoy the movie. I don't know if I'm the only one that enjoyed it, but I really did enjoy the movie. And I also made a promise that if the Security Breach DLC was good enough, I would make a pitch video for that. And it was good enough. I actually did enjoy the story for the game, so that's what this video is. I'm going to be pitching a 10th installment to my FNAF film series with Five Nights at Freddy's Ruin. But before I get into the pitch, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new video like this comes your way. Now, FNAF Security Breach Ruin was the next addition to the FNAF franchise that I was hesitant about adapting, and after seeing the story for the game, I felt like it deserved to be adapted. So, let's get into the actual pitch for the film. It starts with Cassie, a close friend of Gregory's, who has realized that he's gone missing, and months have passed since she last saw him, so she goes into the last place she remembers he was, which was Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. However, now it's been wrecked. It's completely down, like it's completely messed up, and it's only being kept up by a few bits of foundation. And Cassie, would enter with a flashlight and she'd start searching for Gregory. And once she's in, she would find a Roxy-talkie, which is one of those Five Nights at Freddy's version of a walkie-talkie that looks like Roxy. And on the Roxy-talkie, she would hear Gregory's voice. Gregory would say that he's stuck under Roxy's raceway and he needs help, and that's when Cassie would go on the search to help Gregory. And during this initial search, she would be confronted by a disfigured version of Glam Rock Chica and a nearly dismantled version of Monty Gator. And after meeting them, she would find her way into Monty's Gator Golf, where she would start noticing bits of the golf course glitching, and that's when she would find a robot that has bunny ears, and that's sort of reminiscent of the Maskbot in the game. And in its hand, she would find a mask, and it would appear bunny-esque, and she would place it on her face, and the glitching pit of the location would disappear, be completely gone, and she would be able to walk right through it and soon discover that an entity is following close behind her, and this entity's eyes glow red, and the noise of footsteps start to echo in the room. And Cassie, she would take off her mask and hide, and as she's hiding, she would look around and she would see Chica searching for her, sort of giving her an idea that the entity is alerting the animatronics of where Cassie is. And in her hiding location, she would also find a Faz wrench, and she would look at it and be like, oh, I sort of know how to use this, so I'm going to be using the Faz wrench. And once Chica's gone, she would exit and continue walking towards Roxy Raceway. And she would eventually reach the daycare center, and she would see the daycare attendant, and Cassie would try to hide from it as it's having an internal battle for the control between the sun and the moon, with the moon being a little bit more aggressive. And occasionally she would make some noise and then try to hide after the noise, and the sun would very much be screaming out to her to hide, but the moon would be like, no, don't hide, kitties, I need you. And that would be sort of the internal battle that would be happening between sun and moon. Cassie, as she's trying to escape, would notice 2 generators that are currently off, and she would evade the danger of the moon and turn both of them back on. And the daycare attendant would shift between not just sun and moon, but be a combination of the two, which would be known as eclipse. And once the generators are on, her mask would start blinking, and she would put it on and she would see the entity near her, and it would eyes glow red, and it would notify a Glamrock Endo to attack her. And Eclipse, however, would save her and take the mask off of her, and it would tell her to go get to safety and disappear back into the daycare center. But Cassie, not wanting to just abandon Gregory, would go back into finding Gregory and would just ignore the words of Eclipse. And as she moves through the Pizzaplex, Gregory would talk through the Roxy talkie and tell her to follow his specific directions. And once he says all that, the mask would start to glow, and Cassie would put the mask on and see the entity like really nearby her, and Cassie would start running as fast as she can, following the directions of Gregory. Go left, go right, take this door, take this vent, and just try to evade the entity. And once Cassie gets to safety, the entity would disappear and she would take the mask off. And the mask would very much be used as a sort of, hey, we need to look at the entity because the entity is a major plot point in this film, so put the mask on. We need to see the entity. And that would sort of be the way we would get into seeing the entity and this virtual reality world. And through the virtual reality world, we would also see moments of walls disappearing for Cassie to easily exit through the mask. So yeah, that would be a major point. And Cassie would question how all of this is happening, and Gregory would respond with something saying like that something tore the place down, and it is near the Roxy Raceway. And as she would get to Roxy's Raceway, she sees Roxy Wolf still searching for Gregory, like just shouting out his names like, come out, wherever you are. And Cassie would try to avoid her, but inadvertently make a noise, and Roxy would then hear it and race after Cassie, and Cassie would start running away, trying to avoid, very much running the opposite direction of Roxy's raceway. And Cassie would scream out Roxy's name, and Roxy, after hearing this, would stop and respond with Cassie's name, like recognizing that this is Cassie. And so Roxy would whisper error, 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 error to herself, and she would run away. And as she would run away, Cassie would start noticing there's something off about Roxy because she didn't attack her. And so now that she's further away from Roxy's Raceway, Cassie would try to get through Bonnie Bowl. And as she's walking through the bowling alley, she discovers a nearly destroyed Glamrock Bonnie hiding behind a wall. And Cassie would walk next to him and place her hand on his chest, and he would gently jump up, like doing a bit of a jump scare at her, and tells her to beware of the creator. And she would ask, why? What's wrong with the creator? Who's the creator? And he would reply by saying that his creations are corrupted. And then he fully deactivates, very much killing off Glamrock Bonnie in this instance. And after that, her mask would start to light up, and she would put it on, and the entity is near her, causing her to run. And as she's running away, she hears the howl of Monty Gator, noticing that Monty has been alerted by the entity. And she would just hear Monty crawling after her, and she would run into an area that's flooded, and she would start to jump away as fast as she can to get away from Monty as she's seeing him getting closer. But then she would look over and see a generator with a cable that's in the water, and she would run over to it and turn it on with the Faz wrench, causing electricity to course through the water, fully deactivating Monty. And then she would take the mask off and see a destroyed Monty just floating in the water. Like the closest thing to a little bit of a disturbing death, the closest thing we're gonna get to that. And so after that, she would eventually escape out of this area and get back to Roxy's Raceway. And she would get to the garage area where she would see a sinkhole, and she would hide as she sees Roxy sitting near it and just sort of cradling herself like in a ball, like not knowing what to do. And Gregory would come back on the Roxy talkie and tell her that there's one way that can help him fully, and that is to deactivate Roxy. And Cassie knows Roxy. She's been friends with Roxy, and she would be hesitant, but she does turn Roxy off. But Cassie would tear up a little bit as Roxy is laying there on the ground, and she would place the Faz wrench next to her, and as she is sort of crying, placing her hand on her, there would be a little spark that would exit from the Faz wrench to Roxy. And then after that would happen, Cassie would wipe her eyes, pick up the Faz wrench, and walk down the sinkhole. And she would eventually get to a location that was at the end of FNAF Security Breach, sort of that area that is reminiscent to FNAF Risk Management, my title for the Ultimate Simulator, and she would reach a massive security node, and Gregory would come back over the Roxy talkie and tell her, like, hey, you need to deactivate that to let me out. Like, I'm behind this door. This is keeping it closed. I need to get out. And so she would lift up the wrench and turn the node off, and her mask would be blinking rapidly, like, oh. And she would put it back on, and she would see the entity just burst out of the node, reaching out to her, trying to grab her, and she would be backing away in fear, but then the entity would be sucked back into the node and just hidden away as the door would open and her mask would just fall off. And again, as the door is opening, she would start hearing Gregory's voice telling her thank you for saving him, but he's sorry that he had to deceive her. And she looks confused. She's confused over what happened, and Cassie would back away from the door and ask, Gregory, are you okay? And as she's backing away from the door, she sees an endoskeleton exit the room. One that has sort of a marionette type face that's sort of falling apart, but also one that continues to speak through Gregory's voice, someone that is mimicking Gregory's voice. And it would tell her that his creator never understood what it could do, like what it, as the mimic, could do, and it's going to finish its creator's work. And the mimic reaches out to attack Cassie, but Roxy, after getting rejuvenated by the Faz wrench, runs up, stops the fight, stops the mimic, and starts fighting it off. And Roxy screams for Cassie to run away, and Cassie runs as fast as she can, trying to escape, but the mimic screams at Cassie to stop, still in Gregory's voice. And the mimic starts getting closer and closer to Cassie, as on the Roxy talkie, Gregory's voice starts to talk again, and Cassie is like, is this the real Gregory? Who is this? And Gregory is able to say, no, this is the real Gregory. I'm trying to tell you, this is the real me, and I'm going to give you directions to a service elevator. You got to get over there now. And she's able to follow his directions and get inside of the service elevator. As she gets in, the door closes, keeping the mimic away, taking off the arm. And she's in there, and she's taking a few deep breaths, trying to get herself back, calming her down. And once she's in, Gregory tells her that he's sorry, and that the mimic can't be let out. And Cassie looks at the Roxy talkie confused and starts hearing the elevator move. And like, what's happening? And then suddenly Cassie's elevator drops as fast as it can, causing Cassie and the mimic to be stuck under the pizzaplex. And we would cut to black, basically ending this film. But then there'd be a mid-credit scene, but it would still be in black, as just we would hear rustling and rumbles as Cassie would begin to wake up as she hears the voice of Roxy calling out to her. And that is my pitch for Five Nights at Freddy's Ruin. It's very much me taking the base of the game and shortening it to a film's length. I think taking out the security node parts, like the different times of like, oh, Cassie, you need to turn off this security node, and then you gotta go over here and turn off this security node. Like, very much go like video game stuff. I think taking that out helps streamline it to just Cassie helping Gregory out and trying to help her. And I also think that this ending in particular, which is one of the three endings from the game, is the one that makes the most sense for a film, because it's not only neatly ending the story of this singular film, but also it's setting up what could potentially be a future film. And if you're wondering if I will be doing an adaptation of FNAF Help Wanted 2, I'm not going to be doing an adaptation of it, because one of the endings that I saw for it is sort of a lead up to this story, because it ends with one of the endings ends with Cassie getting the mask from Maskbot, and I just felt that it was sort of unnecessary to do it, because if that's the ending I'm picking, then it's just, oh, that was a prequel game that led to here. And the other ending, for me, is just so confusing to dissect and understand that I was just like, I'm just going to stay away from Help Wanted 2, because also I didn't know what to call it. So I'm just staying away from Help Wanted 2. But yeah, that I I felt like it was an unnecessary piece to adapt. So what were your thoughts on the pitch? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you a little indifferent to it? Whatever your thoughts, post them in the comments down below, and also don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new video like this comes your way. But until then, I've been Mr. EliMac, you have been the audience, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.